Hasn't faded to black yet. Okay. Good evening and welcome to tonight's public hearing. This hearing will include Columbus City Council's Finance, Health and Human Services, and Workforce Development Committees. I am Councilmember Priscilla Tyson, President Pro Tem of City Council and Chair of these committees. I also want to welcome Councilmember Michael Stenziano for tonight's hearing. Before we begin, please be aware that this hearing is being recorded for rebroadcast on CTV, the Columbus Government Television Channel 3. The rebroadcast schedule is available at www.columbus.gov. This hearing will include two segments. In the first part of the hearing, we will review changes that are being proposed for the city's purchasing code. Changes include threshold adjustments, new procurement processes, redefining language relative to modifications, and language to allow for electronic bid openings. The revisions are being proposed in order to make the procurement process more transparent, fair, inclusive, flexible, competitive, and efficient. The second segment of this hearing will include the biweekly committee hearing that I hold in order to review legislation and the committees that I chair. This includes Health and Human Services, Finance, and Workforce Development Committees. The goal of the biweekly hearings is to promote transparency and provide an opportunity for city residents to learn and speak on legislation that impacts their lives. The intent of the biweekly hearings is to review legislation that will be on City Council's agenda for the following 2 weeks. Tonight we will hear information on legislation in Finance and Human Services committees. Presenting on the purchasing code changes that we will have is Finance and Managing Director, Director Joe Lombardi. Presenting legislation normally scheduled for the biweekly hearing, we will hear from the Finance and Management Department, Christopher Long, the Fiscal Manager. And from Health and Human Services Committee, we'll hear from the Department of Development, Hannah Jones, Deputy Director of Community Development, and from Columbus Public Health, Roger Cloran, Assistant Health Commissioner. I will begin with changes to the city's purchasing code and ask Director Joe Lombardi to present the revisions. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson and Councilmember Stenziano, for the opportunity to present the proposed changes to Columbus City Code Section 329 as it relates to goods, materials, equipment, and services other than construction and professional services. Let's see, here we go. Ordinance 3023-2017 will be before Council by the end of the year for consideration of changing the current Columbus City Code Section 329. The basis of these changes is to promote a commitment to transparency, fairness, inclusiveness, competitiveness, efficiencies, and flexibility in our procurement of goods. Over the last 18 months, the Department of Finance and Management has worked with city staff and held meetings with each council member to discuss these proposed changes. Furthermore, a review of the 20 largest cities was conducted, and it was determined that the City of Columbus's threshold was the smallest of those 20 large cities. For example, Charlotte's threshold is 100,000, and Indianapolis is 150,000. Austin is at 58,000. The last revision to the thresholds, the amounts of the thresholds, was over 15 years ago. And if the proposed changes are approved by City Council, approximately 1% of those ordinances will be affected per year. As I mentioned, only changes are being made to the section of 329 that is relative to the procurement of goods. This does not include construction services. The proposed changes include the increase in thresholds, new procurement processes to increase vendor opportunities, defining modifications versus renewals of contracts, and language to allow for electric bid openings. Currently, most contracts that are over 20,000 and the use of universal term contracts over 100,000 are required for approval by City Council. The proposed changes, if approved, will increase the threshold for council approval to 50,000, yet keep the universal term contract use at 100,000. With this change, again, approximately 1% of the ordinances currently reviewed by City Council will be affected. Other proposed changes include changes to the thresholds and bidding requirements. Under the current code, departments can solicit bids for goods under $1,000. Goods that are estimated to be between $1,000 and $20,000 must be processed through the purchasing office. For bids that have an estimated cost of over $20,000 are formally bid through the purchasing office. The Department of Finance and Management is proposing to change those thresholds to $5,000, $5,000 to $50,000, and above $50,000. Bidding requirements will remain the same even though the proposed change increases the threshold. Ordinance 3023-2017 also will propose 2 new procurement processes to allow for greater diversity and to allow for other ways to procure goods and equipment. Both of these proposed processes will require the approval of the Finance and Management Director and can only be utilized by the purchasing office. The first proposed process is using best value proposals, or RFPs. Under this process, proposals will be evaluated as opposed to accepting just low price. This process has been utilized in pilot projects in defined cases over the last 18 months with successes such as fire trucks, body-worn cameras, dump trucks, and fire safety equipment. Some advantages to using this process is allowing for the latest technology and their upgrades, life cycle costing, installation costs, the long-term costs of operations and maintenance, and quality. The other proposed process is to allow the city to award multiple vendors for multiple items on universal term contracts. Currently, the city code only allows the city to award an item to the lowest bidder. Through this process, the city can increase vendors and items that will be included in the city's e-catalog system. It'll increase opportunities for minority, female, and small businesses and give city agencies the opportunity to compare pricing when placing an order, and that should save costs. As with the best value process, the city has piloted this procedure as well for items such as medical supplies, small tools, HVAC parts, and office supplies. In regards to office supplies, recently we did an award for office supplies, and one of those awards went to a female-owned business. The final revisions are more language cleanup, if I can say that. First, the city is starting to use more electronic bid openings, and current code language does not speak to allowing this process. So language will be included to allow for electronic bid openings. The next change is the use of modifications. Currently in the code, modifications cover both true contract modifications and renewals of contracts. Language will be incorporated specifying that renewals are allowed so long as the original contract specification called for yearly renewals. However, city agencies cannot go beyond the original term of that contract. Modifications are changes to the contract for additional services or goods not originally included as part of a contract. Divisions still will have to answer 4 questions that they do today. What is the amount? Why the need was not foreseen? Why is this in the best interest of the city? And how the price was determined. Both of these processes, as is the case currently, require the approval of Columbus City Council. Thank you for allowing me for an opportunity to present the proposed changes to Columbus City Code 329 relating to the procurement of goods, and I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Director, and certainly I want to thank you, and I thank Sean, and who has been working on this for the last 18 months. And so just sitting here and thinking about our viewing and listening audience, again, they may ask the question, just why are we doing this? Is there any inefficiencies in the current procurement code? Do you think vendors are going to respond positively to this? Do our staff responding positively to this? Maybe if you you could just share the
Sure.
response to those questions and concerns.
Sure. So one of the goals that we set out to do with these changes was to improve our vendor base, and that includes being able to include more minority and female-owned businesses. And especially with the new processes that we want to incorporate, we feel that when you begin to evaluate and you're scoring as opposed to just looking at low bid, you have more opportunities for small businesses, minority and female businesses to have a chance and have an opportunity at those awards. With the multiple award items, as we've seen it with the office supplies, I think that's where we'll get a good opportunity. Certainly the departments will be happy. It does allow them to solicit bids that are under $5,000 if the code is changed. This will give them an opportunity to solicit a larger vendor base. We will encourage that with the departments. If these changes are approved by Columbus City Council, I will have a conversation with each of the directors of the departments to ensure that we are looking at our minority and female-owned businesses when we're talking those $0 to $5,000 bids. As the case with $5,000 to $50,000, that is still going to go through our purchasing office, so we will control that bid process. We do have a right to do post-award audits on the department so that we can make sure that they are taking reasonable actions to provide opportunities for vendors. And we think that just to give the city some flexibility, and as we have seen with the RFP process, those fire trucks that we bought, for example, allowed us to put new technology that we were not aware of. In the past, we would have just wrote out a spec that said we want A, we want B, and not knowing that C was out there. And so this gives us an opportunity to negotiate and to get the latest and greatest, not only in technology, but safe environment for our firefighters in this case. And we think overall this will save the taxpayers some dollars as well.
You just mentioned the process for the best value evaluations. And when you have factors like quality and experience, and the perception of those can vary widely from person to person, and how will you manage that part of the process? And maybe you can also share if that was, I mean, I'm sure that was part of the process for the successes, and just tell me how that worked out as you went through that particular part of the new changes to the best value proposals.
Sure. When we do the best value process, we put a committee together from different departments. Usually the user department will have a representative. We put someone from the finance department as more of a chair as opposed to a voting member. It's usually 3 to 5 individuals. So what you end up getting there is a diverse opinion, diverse voices at the table that are working together to make sure that the right purchase is being made, as opposed to one person looking at it and saying, well, low bid is the low bid. So this does give us an opportunity to have different viewpoints and different voices at the table as we negotiate, as we review the bids. And then furthermore, the ability to bring in companies and have a oral presentation to ensure that we are getting the best bang for our buck per se. And it has worked out tremendous for us in the pilots that we have done. And I know the employees who are in these trucks or using the equipment are really satisfied with the kind of quality that they're getting.
Director, again, I just thank you and your team for working on the code changes. The last just question I will ask you is that certainly going from the threshold of the contracts from $20,000 to $50,000, you certainly have shared what the some of the other larger cities are doing, and still we're under that threshold. We're not going, you know, we're $50,000. That's the thing, same as a state, I believe, also.
Yes.
And so, again, and you mentioned that you would be doing some audits and some oversight of this process. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I want to just get this on the record that I was remiss in thanking Sean Fouts for all the work that he's done, and I want to thank you for your leadership as well as we met over time to hash this out. But yes, we will have the ability to have audits and to have oversight. And again, we will work with our departments to make sure that we would work with them for policy. If they want an internal policy, we will certainly help them with that.
Thank you, Director. And again, I appreciate the 18 months, that this isn't anything that's rushed, and that certainly you've had conversations with each of my council colleagues to talk about, and you shared proposals with us, and certainly got to a place where I think that everyone was agreeable to what the plan was from the administration. So thank you for this and your leadership.
And thank you, and thank you for the consideration.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. I think that Mr. Chris Long is going to come into your chair now, and present the rest of the legislation from Finance. The floor is yours.
Good evening, President Pro Tem Tyson.
Good evening.
Tonight we have a total of 28 ordinances for your consideration and council's consideration. We tried to capture everything that we thought would be in front of council the last three council agendas. I'll do my best to move through those as quickly as I can. Our first ordinance is Ordinance 2590-2017. This seeks authority for the Finance and Management Director on behalf of our Fleet Management Division to establish purchase orders with Mike Albert Leasing. This would be for the acquisition of electric vehicles. Prior ordinance established the authority to establish a UTC with Mike Albert. This actually moves forward with the purchase of 91 electric vehicles for various city departments.
Can you tell us how you determine which departments they were going to go to? I think there's 91 vehicles, 50 are going to code, 16 code enforcement, 16 for the facilities management, 15 for fire, and 10 for police. What was the process?
Sure. Our Fleet Management Division essentially rolls out an annual buy plan, is what they call it, for city vehicles, and they have routine meetings with all city departments to ascertain what their fleet vehicle needs are. These were somewhat specialized in that they're electric vehicles, not just a traditional fossil fuel base. So it was a process of meeting with those various departments, determining their needs, and then determining which departments actually could utilize those electric vehicles.
Thank you. And do we have the charging infrastructure to support these vehicles, or should we expect some additional future work on city facilities for the installation of charging stations?
Yes, the charging stations we do not currently have in place, but my understanding is that in cooperation with the Department of Public Service, those are currently being installed at various locations around the city. So our anticipation is that those will be in place for these electric vehicles to be able to utilize.
Thank you.
Our next ordinance, Ordinance 2846, seeks authority for the Finance and Management Director to enter into a contract with R.W. Setterland Building Company. This would be for the restoration of a portico roof for the Department of Public Service at their construction inspection facility located on 17th Avenue. This was a formal competitive bid that was solicited, and R.W. Setterland was deemed the lowest responsible bidder.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we mention that the previous legislation for the vehicles is for $2,005,956.76, and for this, the restoration of this roof would be $189,840. And do we anticipate this being completed this winter?
Yes, weather permitting, we anticipate it should be ready before the worst of the winter weather hits.
Thank you.
Our next ordinance for your consideration is Ordinance 2859-2017. This seeks authority for the Finance and Management Director to enter into a contract on behalf of our Office of Construction Management with the Ryder Company. This would be for restoration of the exterior concrete on the eastern half of the southward facing exterior and the full eastward facing exterior of our parking garage over here on Front Street.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2865-2017, we call this our third quarter transfer legislation. I know you're heavily involved in this as well, President Pro Tem Tyson. So it's the Finance Department's ordinance to move and utilize funds where they're needed around the city. So transferring surpluses from one department to deficits in another department to ensure that all city operations can be maintained without interruption.
Thank you. I know we'll be discussing the third quarter review at our next hearing. You can confirm, you can confirm that we are projecting about $14 million in unspent general fund dollars throughout the end of this year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Our next ordinance is Ordinance 2876-2017. This seeks authority for the Finance and Management Director to establish a universal term contract with Schneider Electric Systems for the purchase of process control computer system maintenance for utilization by the Department of Public Utilities, specifically their Division of Water.
Thank you. This is for $275,000, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Our next ordinance is Ordinance 2882-2017. This seeks authority for the Finance and Management Director to establish a universal term contract with Blue Line Innovations, LLC, for the purchase of EMS ballistic vests for use by the Division of Fire.
Certainly, we're always happy to support any measure that will improve the safety of our first responders. And this is for about $140,000.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Our next ordinance, Ordinance 2976-2017, this seeks authority for the Finance and Management Director to establish purchase orders up to $100,000 for body armor and tactical gear with Vance Outdoors Incorporated for the Department of Public Safety, and these would be purchased from a State of Ohio cooperative contract.
Thank you very much.
Our next ordinance, Ordinance 2978-2017, we anticipate this to be one of the final vehicle purchases of the year under our fleet management annual buy plan. And it's largely for the purchase of unmarked covert vehicles for our Division of Police. There's also requested permission to buy some Harley-Davidson police motorcycles from a formal competitive bid, and also a horse trailer, also for use for public safety, also from a competitive bid.
Thank you. And this ordinance for the vehicles, the motorcycles, and upfitting is for $206,642.98, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2986-2017 is our next ordinance. This seeks authority for the Finance and Management Director to establish a universal term contract with J. Higgins LTD. This would be for the purchase of pipes and drums and clothing and accessories for use essentially by our city bagpiping unit.
Thank you. And this is for $30,000?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Our next ordinance, Ordinance 3013-2017, this seeks authority to establish a subfund under Property Management Fund 2294, and also to appropriate revenue proceeds that come into that fund for use at 1402 to 1418 Cleveland Avenue, which is currently where our Point of Pride Center is located. Our Office of Real Estate Management will receive revenues from the leasing of that property and would like the authority to deposit those into a special fund reserved solely for that purpose, and then to appropriate those monies for use for building upkeep.
I just wanted to make sure that, just assuming that the Real Estate Management Office establishes the rental rates for the tenants in the Point of Pride building, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Ordinance 3017-2017 is our next ordinance for your consideration. This seeks authority for the Finance and Management Director to establish a universal term contract with Keisler Police Supply, and this would be, and Vance Outdoors, for the purchase of munitions on behalf of the Division of Police.
This for the training and for use in the field.
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Recruitment training, thank you.
Ordinance 3020-2017 is our next ordinance. This seeks authority for the Finance and Management Director to establish a universal term contract for the purchase of fleet vehicle batteries with Automotive Distributors Company Incorporated. This also seeks the authority to waive the competitive bidding provisions of Columbus City Code. Essentially, what happened was there was one vendor that, due to a technology issue with our vendor services portal, was not able to actually submit their bid. They had all their pricing, all their specifications uploaded to vendor services, but there was an outage from a technology standpoint. So they literally weren't able to hit the submit button. Our purchasing office, they notified the purchasing office of the issue. Our purchasing office confirmed that all of their bid information was properly entered. They just didn't have the opportunity to submit it before the bidding deadline. So our purchasing office felt that in interest of being fair, Automotive Distributors Company was in fact the low bidder, and if they had been able to actually formally submit it, they would have been awarded the contract. So this seeks authority to actually award that contract to them, given that their inability to officially submit the bid was not their fault.
So I understand the technical problems associated with this particular bid and thus the need to waive competitive bidding for this. But to your knowledge, have these issues from the city's vendor portal been resolved?
To my knowledge, yes.
All right. Can you please make sure that someone gets back with us? Because we hate to, we certainly understand that this happened this time, but we hope that whatever the problem was, that it certainly has been resolved.
Yes, President Pro Tem Tyson. I'll speak with our purchasing office tomorrow, and I'll make sure that Sean Fouts contacts your office and provides you with the necessary backup that this particular issue has been resolved and that we don't anticipate anything like this happening in the future.
Okay, thank you. We know we talk about systems, anything can happen. We know that too. So, but just like to make sure that we've done everything on our part that it doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Ordinance 3022-2017 is our next ordinance.
And this bid, I'm sorry, was $450,000, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
About. All right, thank you.
Ordinance 3022-2017 is our next ordinance. This is also seeks authority to establish a universal term contract. This for the purchase of thermoplastic pavement materials, which is essentially roadway striping materials with Swarco Industries for use by our Department of Public Service, specifically the Traffic Management Division.
And this with the estimated spend is going to be $500,000.
That's correct.
Correct. Thank you.
Ordinance 3023-2017 is our request to make amendments and changes to Chapter 329 of Columbus City Code. Obviously, we had a special portion of the hearing reserved for that, so I was going to move on past that unless you had other specific questions.
I don't have any additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ordinance 3044-2017, our next ordinance. This seeks authority for the Finance and Management Director to enter into 3 universal term contracts. This would be for the purchase of specific PVC sewer fittings with Ferguson Enterprises, Discount Drainage Supplies of Columbus, and Core and Main LP. And this would be basically pieces and parts needed for the repair and placement of sewer lines throughout the city of Columbus.
Thank you. And this will be a $40,000 estimated spend.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Ordinance 3061-2017 is the next ordinance. This is, once again, another UTC request. It's the authority to enter into a universal term contract for the purchase of remanufactured toner cartridges and printer maintenance with U.S. Laser LLC, and this would be for utilization by all city departments and divisions.
Thank you.
Ordinance 3080, excuse me, seeks authority for the Finance and Management Director to modify an existing contract with Vinamaya Incorporated for the purpose of some software improvements and enhancements to our internal purchasing catalog. So Vinamaya is essentially what many city departments currently utilize to purchase goods off of universal term contracts. And there are three enhancements essentially that we would like to move forward with. One is to improve the search functionality. That will allow city departments and divisions to find what they need faster and more accurately. Second, it will allow users, there's an enhanced functionality to the search feature. So there'll be, city departments and divisions will be able to get better pricing because they'll be able to compare different products across different vendors. And finally, purchase orders will actually be able to be electronically pushed out to vendors. Currently, with some of our larger vendors, there's a dual entry process that many departments have to go through where we order through our catalog, and then we have to actually go out to the vendor site, for instance, Staples, and we have to re-enter everything we just entered into our catalog system. So this really will simplify things in that whatever we order through our catalog is automatically pushed out to their website, and you're done in one step. So it'll save a lot of time and accuracy issues on that front as well.
Thank you. Well, these changes will cost $56,666. And I know it certainly has been a process transitioning to our new financial system and procurement platform. And I appreciate that we're always trying to find ways to make it work more efficiently. And what you shared today appears that it will be much more efficient for the members of our team, which is the city, to be able to procure goods and services. So I'm excited about this modification. Thank you.
And then we have a number of ordinances that I'll move through quickly. These, some of which have been entered into our Legistar system and others have not, but we anticipate them being in front of council in our December hearings. The first batch are really largely related to our 2018 operating budget. Those are ordinances 3008, 3009, 3010, and a yet to be determined authorized strength ordinances. And that batch just, as you're well aware, President Pro Tem Tyson, just deal with our general fund, our other fund ordinances, and then setting our authorized strength at the appropriate levels for 2018. And then we have, I'll just move quickly, we have some other ordinances that we think will definitely be in front of council. One would be a modification with Ohio Technical Services. This would be to do some lead remediation over at the police shooting range. Their conveyor system at the shooting range can, from time to time, become polluted with lead, and it's obviously very important that we make sure that that is remediated on a timely basis for worker and employee safety. So we anticipate that will be in front of council before the end of the year. We anticipate a request to a construction contract modification with Robertson Construction Services. And that would be for the modification of a construction contract at Fire Station 2. I'm happy to pause for a minute and see if you had any questions on those two ordinances before I move on.
I think there'll be an opportunity. I mean, you can just tell me about them,
Sure.
but I think that we will, you can kind of move through it, but I think there'll be further discussion on the ones that we're not talking about tonight. Thank you.
Sure. And then just a few more. We anticipate an ordinance that would select a vendor and fund for the citywide operations review. We anticipate that to be approximately $600,000. The RFP process is still underway. And the selection committee is still in the process of selecting a vendor to award to. But we hope to have that in front of council before the end of the year, not only the vendor, but the full scope of services of that operations review of all city departments. Fleet management, we anticipate we'll have 2 ordinances. One, just to purchase fuel to carry them through until the next operating budget, and the same for parts and tires, making sure they have enough to get us through. And then finally, we anticipate a modification of our real estate management contract with Paradigm Properties. As you know, they manage the municipal court building for us. They've recently identified some potential long-term issues with the sanitary stacks at the municipal court, which is basically, they're called sanitary stacks, which is essentially for lack of a better term, the sewer lines that run north and south throughout the building. We obviously do not want that to turn into something more serious. Paradigm is in the process of determining how much it would cost to replace those in the largest state of disrepair. And then we would anticipate seeking council authority to modify that contract so we can get that taken care of right away.
Thank you, Mr. Long, and appreciate you sharing the ordinances that we are anticipating through the end of the year. And I'm also looking forward to our hearing on December the 5th at 4 o'clock to have a more in-depth look at the mayor's proposed 2018 operating budget, which he presented today, as well as a series of committee hearings that my colleagues and I will host in December and January to review the budget proposal. So thank you very much.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson.
All right. And next we'll hear from the Department of Development, Hannah Jones, Deputy Director of Community Development.
Good afternoon, President Pro Tem Tyson. For your consideration this evening, we only have one ordinance. It is Ordinance 2856-2017 and is anticipated to be on the November 20th agenda. This ordinance allocates $566,946 to help us assist our shelters with various repairs that are needed. Specifically, we will be assisting 5 nonprofit organizations with various repairs that occur, specifically including bathroom improvements, kitchen repairs and upgrades, dormitory and client intake areas, improvements in those areas to make them more welcoming, hospitable environments, and installing various safety features. We're going to be supporting repair efforts through Lutheran Social Services, Mary Haven, Southeast Inc., the YMCA, and the YWCA. And if you have any questions, I am happy to answer them.
No, thank you. Just appreciate the capital funds being used to make sure that the nonprofit organizations that are focused on our vulnerable residents, helping them through difficult times to be able to get the tools that they need to be able to move forward. And they can use their operating dollars to do that, to help them to move forward and enhance their quality of life while making sure that while they're in these facilities, that certainly that these facilities are just very important for their overall just quality of life. I'll just say that. I think that we need to make sure that the facilities in which people who may be homeless in our community, that these nonprofit organizations need to be places where we're treating people with respect and dignity. And we provide these funds. That's what we're doing. So, and we'll be excited to be able to present this legislation to my colleagues in support of our most vulnerable residents. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
And now we will hear from Mr. Roger Clorn, the Assistant Health Commissioner, to present the legislation from the Health Department. Good evening, Roger.
Good evening, Pro Tem Tyson. Tonight we have 15 pieces of legislation. The first is 2781-2017. It's for needed office renovations and carpet. We're seeking to establish purchase orders with Continental Office Furniture for the installation of carpet in the amount of $19,757. and to purchase auditorium chairs in the amount of $30,338.82. Our auditorium is used extensively by the city and community partners, and this will allow us to replace worn carpet and allow us to replace broken chairs so we can adequately host these events.
Thank you, Roger. And yes, there, that space is used frequently, not only by your team, but again, it is a place where our community tends to come for various meetings because you have great parking, you have large space, and so we, again, want to make sure that that when people are coming into the space, that again, it reflects how we feel about them and their organizations in our community. So, thank you.
Great. Next is Ordinance 2804. Columbus Public Health has been awarded a grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services for the Healthy Start Grant Program for $1,080,000 for the period November 1st, 2017 through October 31st, 2018. This grant program, otherwise known as My Baby and Me, enables Columbus Public Health to conduct home visiting care coordination program in Franklin County. We focus on perinatal and infant clients and their families. This funding allows us to serve 800 clients, of which 400 are pregnant and 400 parenting women and their infants up to the age of 2 who reside in Franklin County. Clients will receive education on pregnancy, women's health, infant growth, development, safety, nutrition, immunizations, breastfeeding, and safe sleep.
Thank you. It's great to get these funds from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Certainly, this will help us with our Celebrate One initiative of ensuring that babies live to their first birthday and beyond. And this is just a great way to assist mothers in our community to, one, get the great prenatal care that's so important, but also to help them get through those first couple of years through having their children and helping them to provide them with all the tools they need for their children to move forward. And so 800 women, and if there are 800 clients, and how, if an individual wants to be involved in this program, how could they do that?
They can call 614-724-BABY, which is 2229.
2229. Oh.
Yes. And,
all right.
The program is completely voluntary and free of cost, so they can just call that number and sign up.
Thank you.
As part of that $1,080,000 award, the My Baby and Me has partnerships with hospitals, Mount Carmel and Ohio Health. This allows us to work with registered nurses available to provide home visiting and education for pregnant mothers up through and until the time of birth. After delivery, these clients are then transferred to CPH to be served by our home visiting program. So Ordinance 2806-2017 provides funds for these services. Mount Carmel, it's for $130,000. Decision Support Services, which provides support for our data system for this program, is $41,750. Ohio Health is $130,000, and Moms to Be is $15,000, and all total it's $316,750.
Thank you.
Next is 2853-2017, which awards Columbus Public Health $135,000 for the Creating Healthy Communities grant for the calendar 2018 year. This program works in priority areas of Linden, South Side, and West Side to address chronic disease health disparities. Initiatives focus on increasing physical activity opportunities in work sites, increasing access to healthy food options through implementation of Fresh Foods Here Healthy Corner Store program, as well as increasing opportunities for smoke-free living by implementing multi-unit housing smoke-free policies.
I'm very excited about this program, especially the access to fresh foods here, ensuring that with just thinking about the work of our local food action plan, that the corner store program is very important for our neighborhoods where we have food deserts for individuals to go into those stores and be able to identify the healthy foods that are within those stores, and just appreciate the partnerships that we're having with them. Certainly appreciate all the other areas that we're looking here at this to a physical activity. Again, we have healthy foods as well as smoke-free living environment. So this is great legislation to help the improve the quality of life for our residents. So thank you.
Our fifth piece tonight is Ordinance 2841-2017, which provides for additional funds for the Ryan White HIV Care Part A program. This grant has periodic grant awards throughout the year, and this is just another award in that process. The Ryan White Part A program works to prevent new HIV infections and to improve the health and lives of people living with HIV by providing access to quality health care and valuable support services for populations impacted most by this epidemic. In 2016, we served over 2,400 Ryan White clients with outpatient medical case management, mental health, and housing services. If anyone is interested in this program, they can obtain more information by contacting Sean Hubert at 614-645-6522 or at seanh@columbus.gov or Audrey Reagan at 614-645-6790 or asreagan@columbus.gov.
Thank you.
Next is Ordinance 2988-2017, and this modifies and increases contract amounts with various vendors to provide the services I just described. We are increasing Equitas Health by $278,407, AIDS Healthcare Foundation by $34,794, Nationwide Children's Hospital by $50,004, and OSU Wexner Medical Center by $60,000.
Roger, this is just a question that was even asked on the previous legislation. Do you know if how we're doing with like viral suppression? Do we ever get those kinds of numbers or information in regards to the Ryan White?
I do not have them with me, but we could certainly follow up with your office.
That would be great.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate how the money is being used in the various areas you just mentioned, but I'm also just wondering about the viral suppression. Thank you.
The next piece is Ordinance 2861. This ordinance allows CPH to accept a $51,650.34 grant for the Moms Quit for Two grant program. This program is a smoking cessation program for pregnant, postpartum, and breastfeeding moms. The women this program serves are clients through the 9 public health women's WIC clinics that we have in the community. And to date, there have been 112 women who have completed the counseling program, and an additional 87 that have been referred to the Ohio Tobacco Quit line.
Again, if someone wanted to get involved with this program, could you please share how they could do that? And this is really important for the moms to quit for two, because one, we know that smoking is one of the main reasons for SIDS, and second of all, if you have children and you have one of the triggers for asthma is smoking in the household, and so this is a really important program for our moms and families. And so again, if someone wants to get involved with this program, how would they do it?
They could contact Tara Tucker at 614-645-6731 or by email at tatucker@columbus.gov.
Thank you.
The next 4 ordinances we have relate to our TB program. We're trying to modify the contracts for our medical service providers. In 2016, the TB program treated 49 new active TB cases, and 108 Franklin County residents received directly observed therapy and medical case management. To do that, we had to perform over 5,900 directly observed therapy patient visits. In order to continue this work, we need to modify these contracts, and that's what Ordinance 2879-2017 does. The first one there is with Ohio State Division of Infectious Disease and Internal Medicine. The next one is Ordinance 2884-2017, and that is to modify the contract with Pharmacy People Incorporated for an additional $4,511.71 for pharmacy services.
Thank you.
The third contract is with Nationwide Children's Hospital. This Ordinance 2886 will increase the contract by $6,000 for radiology services.
Thank you.
And the final contract is Ordinance 2888-2017, which increases the contract with Advantage Imaging LLC by $2,500 for radiology services.
Thank you.
The next ordinance is 2967-2017. Council originally approved a contract with MedPro Waste Disposal LLC for $7,920 for needle disposal container maintenance services. This ordinance will add $12,000 to this contract to allow more needles to be collected and properly disposed. A necessary component to combating the negative effects of this epidemic, the opiate epidemic, specifically the spread of infectious diseases, is the safe and sanitary disposal of needles and related materials.
With these additional funds, how many more MedPro disposal boxes will we be able to purchase?
At this point, it's mostly for the collection of more needles at the existing sites, so that we can more timely empty out the boxes so they don't overflow.
Thank you.
I have three more to go. Ordinance 2830.
Do you have a list of where these, so for the public, do they know where these boxes are? Do you have a
Yes, we can.
locations? Can you share those?
I do not have those with me. I know there is one by the Hilltop. There's three, I think, currently, but and I think it's on our website, but I can certainly get
Provide
that list
that
to you.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2837 is to contract with Abbott Laboratories for HIV testing and screening equipment. This will be for $122,784.51. Our lab performs over 13,000 tests per year, and this purchase is necessary to meet CDC recommendations to utilize fourth-generation tests to ensure patients receive accurate same-day results and to expedite linkage to care.
Thank you.
Next is Ordinance 3069-2017. This ordinance will authorize Columbus Public Health to maintain a revenue contract with Franklin County Children's Services for $1,755,000 for the period January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2020, for the provision of nursing services to children under their care by assigning nurses to the Intake and Investigation Department. These nurses will perform health assessments of children, make home visits with intake staff, provide nursing consultation and training, interpret medical reports, and help develop treatment plans for families referred to FCCS. In 2016, there were over 31,000 intake referrals received by the county, and almost 12,000 family investigations were completed.
I certainly appreciate this partnership with Franklin County Children's Services, and the next piece of legislation that we're going to talk about is also collaboration with Franklin County Children's Services, and just really appreciate that our staff is able to work with that team to make sure that if there are any reports of child abuse, that we're able to help them to identify if that is happening, and if not, and also how to work with families, which is, helping to keep families together, and just appreciate the work of, the two staffs working together, because overall we want to make sure that our children are always going to be safe. And so just appreciate that work that we're doing in this partnership.
As you mentioned, the last piece we have, Ordinance 3068, is kind of a related piece. We also continue desire to work with FCCS and the Family Ties Program with the revenue contract. These services will provide case management, public health nurse services, social worker, and respite services. Family Ties Program provides home visiting services to approximately 100 Franklin County children from birth to age 3 and their families to help work with and prevent any additional instances of abuse or neglect. Anyone interested in more information concerning this program, they can contact Kay Bennick at 614-645-6714 or K.E. Bennick at columbus.gov, or Lori Ruffin at 614-645-7638, or L. Ruffin at columbus.gov.
Thank you, Roger. And again, this particular partnership with Franklin County Children's Services, that I know that individuals from public health nurse will work with the families for approximately 4 to 6 months. And really their goal is those home visits to help those parents learn how to improve their family's health and provide better opportunities for their children. And also, I think that the respite services are brought into the home to help mothers deal with any overwhelming demands and needs of their family. So just appreciate that work. The outreach workers' role is, again, showing ways to play and interact with children, infant stimulation, and assistance around medical and mental health appointments. So again, I think our goal is to make sure that our families receive the services that they need so that their families will be able to move forward. We want all our families to move forward. The administration is always talking about, neighborhoods and families, and just appreciate this legislation and these partnerships. So thank you.
That's all we have tonight.
Thank you very much. Well, I hope this evening's hearing has provided insight into programs and community initiatives from Columbus Public Health and the Department of Development, as well as finance-related legislation that is necessary to support our ongoing city operations. As residents, these hearings are an opportunity for you to learn and become engaged in issues that are presented. I would like to thank this evening's presenters from Finance and Management, Director Joe Lombardi and Christopher Long, our Fiscal Manager, from Department of Development, Hannah Jones, the Deputy Director of Community Development, from Columbus Public Health, Roger Clorn, and the Assistant Health Commissioner. I also want to always recognize the legislative research team that helps us to do our work even better. Michael Kessler, who leads the Legislative Research Office, Matt Erickson, who staffs the Finance Committee, Alex Pinnell, who staffs the Health and Human Services Committee, Nancy Pryor-Sully, who was part of our city's Council's Community Engagement Team, my staff, Nicole Harper and Carl Williams, and then the hardworking team at CTV who make these hearings possible, and finally the residents of Columbus who make our city the best place in the country to live, to work, and to raise a family. And thank you. Our hearing is adjourned.